Hey folks, Breakaway Homesteader live tonight, talking to you about the pandemic and what's going on. As you can see, I have an empty chair next to me. My wife is in bed right now. She let me take a nap, and so she went to bed a little early tonight. She's fighting a little infection, so she decided sleep was best, and I agree. Sleep is always best for any uh, sickness or illness that's happening. A lot of times we don't catch up on the sleep we need. But uh, here we are, a month later, after we started our first live show on pandemics. And where are we now compared to then? There was about 200 cases total, and it was pretty ridiculous. So let me get my channel up here real quick so I can chat with you guys. If you guys have any questions or anything like that, you can ask them on the live chat and we'll get to those. I'll try to get to those as much as possible. YouTube, working live. All right. We got three people watching. Ridiculous. All right. Not sure who's in the room. Chat, say hi. I welcome you here. Normally we do our live shows Thursday night, 8:30 p.m. I just haven't had the time. It's just been pretty busy and pretty hectic as far as my work schedule goes, and training and stuff like that. So Megan convinced me to do the show tonight because I was going to delay it, but she's like, no, we got to get something out there. We have a weekly show to do. And so I said, yes, you're right. And so we will be doing that. And so with that, this is not going to be a normal show. It's going to be strictly talking about NPIs and what the CDC is showing us. We've all the CDC here in America. What the CDC is going to be showing us as things unfold in this pandemic. And I got a whole bunch of material here. And it's not verbatim from the book, but it comes from this particular manual that they took from influenza and put COVID-19 on top of it. And they crossed out all influenzas and changed all the names to COVID-19. And so the reason why I want to do this series is to show you exactly the steps we need to take to fight this thing, because it's a brand new novel coronavirus. So this particular manual has all the steps they are going to take. So when you hear those cues, you can know, hey, this is what's going on. This is what's going to happen next. This is what they're going to say next. LB's trying to get in the door. Coming. So let me pull up my slideshow here, and this will not be a long show, by the way, folks. Rhonda Microfarmer, welcome. Still don't have tests available. Hello from Maine. Yep, that's correct. The United States has tested less than 500 people. That doesn't mean there's 500 people with positives, but they've tested less than 500 people. I follow a particular doctor, and you can follow him on my website. I update his info on my website every day, so you can see what the numbers are and exactly what videos really popped out for that day, because I add those to my site as well. You don't have to flip through all the humbum of YouTube to see those videos. So, Angela Sandlin, hello from Ohio. Hope you guys are doing well up there. Probably cold, but I hope you're doing well. Doc Ferris, welcome. Your cat's fine. So let me pull up this info here. I'm going to switch over screens. Display capture. Probably see my ugly mug. There it is. Switch to PowerPoint. Presentation. Pandemic and PI. It's interesting how it put it up on the screen there. That's interesting. 3D capture. All right. I'll pull up my notes. So we're going to be talking about pandemic NPI tonight. What is it and how do we get on board? Full disclosure, I'm not a medical professional, and the advice I give on this video is only suggested advice. I am not responsible for any actions you may take on your own behalf. You got a head between your shoulders? Go ahead and use that. Most people here understand how to use that, so I'm not really worried about you guys. So, current situation. This was earlier today, obviously. We are currently in a situation that is dire and does not have an easy way out. The following weeks will determine the direction COVID-19 will take in this global pandemic. As of this morning, 28 February 2020, there were 83,725 confirmed cases. You can see here a little bit more of COVID-19 worldwide, and 60 cases an underreported number in the United States alone. Of course, we know for a fact there's more than 60 cases of COVID-19 in the United States. So here's my issue with that. HIPAA, the rules that protect us from disclosing personal information. They're stretching it out to the point to where they don't even want to tell people that you have it, if you have it, because it's against your rights, and so on and so forth. One, a number is just a number. No one's going to tell. So if I live in the state of North Carolina and I have it, it would just be a 1. They won't even announce that. And so, Elby, get out of here. The State Department, or the state of California, and the Health Department of California are reporting two different things. The governor of California says, hey, what's going on here? Why isn't the state health department reporting the proper numbers? And their numbers are sitting above 30 official cases. And then if you look on the screen or any place where they're tracking it, it's only 15 to 20 folks. So because of HIPAA laws, they're legally not bound to tell people or tell the authorities of WHO or the CDC or any other authority, federal authority, that the state actually has cases, which is kind of BS in my book. But it's getting pretty darn crazy. So 52 countries outside, and it has gone up, of China have, sorry, let me put it back up here, have this virus, has this disease, and of those 52 countries, 44 still have active cases. That means, yes, you're looking at the numbers on there saying, oh, 55 countries have this, but there are some countries out there that have had small numbers that have been repatriated back into society as being deemed healthy. I don't follow that number either, because it's popping up left and right that people either are carrying the disease while they're in healthy condition, or they are getting sick again. And so the current death percentage is sitting at 3.4%. That's crazy. And of course, most of those numbers are based upon what we saw in China. Now, rinse, lather, repeat, it's going to happen here in the United States. Eventually, the CDC has already put out, hey, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So that is the numbers. There is currently no vaccine for this disease. And the thing about vaccine, like giving an example, the flu vaccine, you are inserting into yourself a dead version of the virus so you can create antibodies to fight the actual virus, right? So when you get this vaccine, whenever it comes out, a year from now, a year and a half from now, you are actually inserting that virus into your body. So regardless, we were all going to get this virus in some form or another. But until that time, because this is a novel virus, we do not have a vaccine for this disease. Uh, this means we must prepare to face the very first wave of this pandemic without a vaccine, potentially without sufficient quantities of antiviral medications currently on the market for influenza, because that's the only thing that's out here. This is not the flu. During this pandemic, decisions about how to protect ourselves before an effective vaccine is made available needs to be based upon scientific data, not an ethical consideration. This is not about politics. People who are blowing this up about politics, especially Jimmy Kimmel, that guy, I'm telling you, it is funny. Don't get me wrong, but people who are making this political and pointing fingers, saying this person did that, this person didn't do that, regardless, this virus would go through its course with or without politics. If we were here on the earth or not, this virus still would go global between animals, but it is not a political race. All your information should be based upon facts from scientists. So turn off the Twitter feed, turn off CNN, and get the facts from the people who are creating new breakthroughs with this virus. Check our. Hello from Florida, Michael Nason. Food Forest Permaculture, hello. Common Man, hello. Can't shake your hand, New Jersey here. I'm not shaking anybody's hand right now. So back to the PowerPoint presentation. Oh, one side or the other here. Sorry, folks. So evidence to determine our best route through this pandemic is very limited. The last major pandemic of this scale to hit the world was the Spanish flu pandemic from 1917 to 1919. There have been a couple of other influenza type, SARS type pandemics, but not since the 60s. The Spanish flu was the last major pandemic we had worldwide that killed a lot of people. Still, retrospective data from that data will need to be examined and analyzed with the context of our modern day society. And these pictures are great. They've been colorized by a film editor. So what that means is we're going to have to take the lessons that we learned from those days and extrapolate new information from those. That's exactly what we're doing today. The information that I'm going to be putting out to you is going to be extrapolated from a previous version of the CDC's pandemic planning guidance, and that guidance was specifically for influenza. And so they crossed that out and they put COVID-19 on that. So exactly that, the Centers for Disease Control has provided us with a framework that is going to be based upon an early, targeted, and layered application of multiple partially effective non-pharmaceutical measures. We must initiate these measures now before explosive growth of the virus in the United States, that the spread can be delayed until more scientific breakthroughs have been created to eradicate COVID-19 virus. Oh. All right. Sorry, my mouse is going a little crazy. In layman's terms, or easy terms to understand, the best way to get past this point when our country begins getting cases is to avoid And what we're going to do is going to hide under a rock until a uh, vaccine becomes available. That's the only thing we can do at this point. So avoid, avoid, avoid. We're going to take steps that are non-pharmaceutical to uh, to keep from getting this. And there are many steps that we could take. And we're going to start a 4-part series right now on uh, NPIs, which is non-pharmaceutical interventions. And you'll hear the CDC case manager or the United States manager for the CDC say NPI a lot. Of course, they're not really explaining what this is, and that's kind of what this series is about. But it's also about how the CDC will look at this, and we kind of have an inside look at their playbook. So when you hear certain keywords, you can go, okay, I heard about that. This is what's going to happen next, because they will keep the major public out of the know with acronyms, things that they know but you don't know, right? So that's exactly what we're going to go through tonight. All right, get my notes back up here. Non-pharmaceutical interventions. What is it? NPI. Non-pharmaceutical interventions are actions that people and communities can take to help slow the spread of illness like COVID-19. NPIs, and I will be acronyming it after this point because there's so many NPIs. NPIs are also known as community mitigation strategies. When COVID-19 spreads among people, causing illness worldwide, it is called a pandemic. Because this COVID-19 is a new pandemic, the human population has little or no immunity against it. This allows the virus to spread quickly from person to person worldwide. NPIs are amongst the best ways to control the pandemic virus when vaccines are not yet available. And this is really our only option. This is what we have. This is all we've got at this point. We have NPIs to slow down the infection rate of this pandemic. Yeah, I put in there pandemic flu. It's actually pandemic virus because this is not the flu. I'll correct that later. Pandemics are assigned 1 to 5 categories based upon its increasing severity. See here on the left, this was the graph they gave us, or the optic they gave us. And of course, obviously, it hasn't been updated in a while, so I updated it on the right. So, pandemics are assigned 1 to 5 categories based upon the increasing severity. This index provides we, the people, with a tool for contingency planning on the way ahead. This is the key tool that the CDC uses and how things will unfold if you follow the rules of the CDC to the T as this thing progresses. If your community faces a sudden arrival of this virus, this severity tool will define what actions you will be taking. Now, take a look here. So you got category 1 through 5, 1 being the least worst, 5 being the worst. I updated the numbers since this one had a population of 298 million from 2006. Our numbers have gone up to 330 million since that time. So this is based upon 30% of the population of the United States of America. And so if assuming that 30% illness rate and ultimate unmitigated pandemic without intervention. So this is just a snapshot of what it would look like if 30% of our country became infected with COVID-19. And so those numbers are based upon the percentage rate of that 30% of the population. So 2%, category 5, it's 2 million people affected, all the way down to just 0.1%, and that is 100,000 people affected. Even 100,000 people, that's a lot of people, folks. And with a death rate of at least 2.4, a lot of bodies will be piling up. And so from that point, we'll refer back to this graph every once in a while to show exactly where we're at on these categories. Sorry, folks, got a dry throat tonight. So let's talk about mitigation strategies. Check my Food Forest, Common Man, Michael Neeson, the High Desert Pioneer. Welcome. Get my notes back up here. Let's go back here one real quick. So this graphic proposes a community strategy that matches recommendations on planning for the use of NPIs based upon the category of the COVID-19 pandemic. These are made on the basis of an assessment of the possible benefits weighed against the cascading second and third consequences that will happen from their use. What are cascading consequences? You think of cascading consequences as a ripple effect. They say a pebble that creates a ripple, when thrown in the water of one side of the pond, can grow into a wave on the other side of the pond, right? So, for example, taking kids out of school can lead to parents having to take time off of work, which can mean a loss of household income and worse effects for those households that live paycheck to paycheck. It's a ripple effect. In turn, that workplace absenteeism can lead to a disruption of delivery of goods and services, detriment to the viability of the community. So every small action that's taken has a reaction in the normalcy of what it was like before. And so that is what cascading consequences is. Mitigation strategy by pandemic severity. These are general NPIs to take in the upcoming COVID-19 pandemic. So first off is home voluntary isolation. And we will definitely dive into these a little more detailed further series down the road. But these are just examples to show you exactly what NPIs are and how it's going to work out. So voluntary home isolation. Non-tested, ill at home adults and children should voluntarily isolate themselves until there is a determination of illness. This intervention duration may vary depending on the availability of testing kits for the COVID-19 virus. We had somebody say in the very beginning, not enough people are getting tested. No test kits means no numbers. So we don't really know what the numbers are in the United States, only for the few that have been tested. And that number has been less than 500 people in the United States alone. Another NPI, mitigation strategy by pandemic severity, is voluntary quarantine. So voluntary quarantine is not recommended until the pandemic has reached past level 1 of the category scale because of the consequences. The consequences may outweigh the benefits. So if we have less than 100,000 people sick across the United States, unless there's some specific need, voluntary quarantine will not be needed. So voluntary quarantine is of a member in home that have been out in contact with an ill person, either in the household or outside the household. Contact is contact. If it is with household, all members would stay quarantined as well inside that household. So basically, if you feel that you've come in contact with this virus, you would isolate yourself at home, not necessarily other people. or you would isolate yourself away from your family in a specific room, a sick room, a quarantine room, someplace where the rest of the family is not going to be exposed to you for a certain amount of time to determine that you do not have COVID-19. So after category 2, but before category 4 and 5, you should consider self-quarantining to decrease the risk of household transmission. So basically, if you expose yourself to somebody outside the household, you quarantine yourself so you don't pass it to people inside your household. That's going to reduce the R naught, which we'll talk about later. At category 4 and 5, it is recommended that you self-quarantine. And when I say recommended, that means you'll probably be forced to quarantine if people know that you have been exposed to somebody with this sickness, with this disease. Another NPI to put in effect is school/child social distancing. School/child social distancing is not recommended until the pandemic has reached past level 1 on the category scale, again, because the consequences may outweigh the benefits. School-child social distancing is pulling or dismissal of students from schools, school-based activities, and the removal from childcare. You would reduce out-of-school contacts from the community and community mixing. So basically, you're going to take your kids out. We're going to pull our kids out of school because they're a big petri dish of children. Now, kids are starting to get sick from COVID-19, but they don't know if they're actually going to have any bad problems with it. Currently, so far, not so much. But they could be the petri dish that brings it to us. If they might not get symptomatic at all, but they could give it to us, and so on and so forth. So pulling kids out of school, after school activities, and from daycare is going to greatly lower the risk of transmission to other people. You're isolating them from transmission, and it's obviously one step that you should take. We will all take at some certain point. After category 2, but before category 4 and 5, again, we're talking about the scale right here. You would consider social distancing to decrease the risk of household transmission. This would be a short-term implementation measure that would last no more than 4 weeks. So right there, we're putting a line in the sand. You need at least 4 weeks of supplies for the off chance you might self-quarantine just to see if you have the disease. So let's put 30 days on that ticker right there. Category 4 and 5, it is recommended that school/child social distancing is enforced. Plan for prolonged implementation measures that can be as short as 1 month, but up to 3 months. Each pandemic wave can be expected to last 6 to 8 weeks. Yes, there can be several waves or mutations of this virus, and it could be a rinse, lather, repeat process. So think about that and what kind of ripple effect that would have. Excuse me, folks. So another mitigation strategy for pandemic severity is workplace, community, adult social distancing. So we've gotten past the point where we're keeping our kids at home, and now we're getting to the point where going to work is not a good option because transmission is that bad. Workplace, community, adult social distancing is not recommended until pandemic level has reached level 1 in the category scale because of the consequences. The consequences may outweigh the benefits as before. Workplace and community adult social distancing is to decrease the number of social contacts in our adult lives. Example would be using cell phone calls or FaceTime apps to limit exposure, even to your own doctor. At this point, you'll be doing doctor appointments through FaceTime, or they'll be coming to you. Maybe they'll revert back to the old-fashioned way. I highly doubt that, but you'll probably be FaceTiming with your doctor. You would take these measures to increase the distance between yourself and other people. Example would be to keep minimum distance of 3 to 6 feet away from other people. Consider driving to work instead of taking uh, some sort of local transit. Basically, you're modifying, postponing, canceling public events, gatherings. You would modify your work schedules and practices. Telecommute to work, and and come up with ways to stagger your work schedule with other people so you're not exposed to so many people. At category 2, but before category 4 and 5, you would consider workplace community adult social distancing to decrease the risk of household transmission. This would be a short-term implementation measure that would not last more than 4 weeks. Again, 4 weeks. We've already drawn a line in the sand at 4 weeks. And then following up to that was up to 3 months. So that means that you have to have a supply at home for up to 3 months, at least. So at category 4 and 5, it is recommended that workplace community adult social distancing is enforced. Plan for prolonged implementation measures that can be as short as 1 month, but up to 3 months. Again, 3 month supplies needed, not just 1, not 2 weeks, but 3 month supplies needed. Each pandemic wave can be expected to last 6 to 8 weeks. So if we have one wave, you've got to replenish those supplies. Yes, there could be several waves or mutations of the COVID-19. So this is the first part. This is the first part of a 4-part series. We talked about the scale of which to follow in the upcoming pandemic, the categories that we put out there. We learned that there's no vaccine yet, and that our best route is non-pharmaceutical interventions to avoid this virus until that first vaccine comes out, or practical vaccine comes out to fight this virus and keep from being so deadly. The need to be prepared with at least 3 months worth of supplies. Folks, CDC, ready.gov, HWO, or WHO, that was backwards. Are like, oh, you only need 2 weeks supplies. No, folks, now is the time to prepare. You need at least 3 months worth of supplies. We learned what NPI is, non-pharmaceutical interventions. We learned 4 specific examples that the CDC follows by specifically to this category chart. And so if you hear any of those 4 different things, you'll know that they're following this chart on how they're going to be introducing NPIs. Taking kids out of school, recommending that you stay home from work, so on and so forth. NPIs are going to be set in place to reduce the risk of spreading of the disease. Some mitigation strategies to prevent the spread of COVID-19. We talked about keeping your kids at home, keeping yourself at home, quarantining, self-quarantining, and those are mitigation strategies to prevent the spread of COVID-19. What's in part 2 of the 4-part series? We're going to talk about phases of the pandemic, how the CDC is going to react to each one. Again, we're going to have those key words that the CDC is going to put out there that you won't understand, but you will now because we're going to talk about it, so you know how to act or react when those words come out. WHO stages, they have their own phases, and they call them stages. We're going to discuss those and how they account for the stages of the pandemic. We're going to talk about R naught. That R0 right there is called an R naught. It's a specific term used by medical professionals and epidemiologists to learn about the transmission and how contagious people are. And so the higher the number, the more contagious it is, the more one person will transfer the disease to another, to other people, multiple people, and how effective that'll be in this pandemic. And then we're going to talk about pandemic interventions. So that's the end of that slideshow. Let me pull up my take this off here. So folks, there it is. That's the first section of how the CDC is going to follow through. I'll give you an example of what NPIs are, how we're going to use NPIs, and that's the icing on the cake. Doc Ferris could give you testament that that there are so many other things that we can do. So let me look at the comments here. Lysol spray works. Lysol spray does work. Definitely use it. Get a lot of it. If you can find it, do it. But that is spraying aerosol over everything. Doesn't mean it's going to land particularly on every single spot. Wiping down the surface is a better option with wipes or something with alcohol in it or chlorine. Schools lose money if closed or reduced attendance. Yes, they do. They lose money. They lose funding. Of course, schools are at the federal level unless you have a private school, and private schools will continue on. The government is looking at other options, and there are public schools that are actually online that they'll try to implement and probably continue to use after the pandemic because it'll be easier and cheaper for the government. But until it's privatized, it really is still a federal program, and so the country is supposed to be able to take it because it's based upon our tax dollars that we give. Rhonda says, our schools as of today have no idea what's really happening and no plan, and any mitigation has to be done per family. The schools won't do anything unless the government tells them to, and that's exactly what they're going to do. They're going to follow what the CDC says, and this is part of it. Now, keep an ear to the ground, keep an open eye. Of course, when you're sitting in an airplane and that oxygen mask comes in front of your face, what is the first thing you do? You help yourself so you can help other people, help your kids, help your spouse, so on and so forth. So you're going to help yourself first. You're going to have first information, and you're going to be able to see what's unfolding to be able to make your own decisions. During a pandemic, the schools don't have the right to tell you you have to bring your kids here. You have a God-given right to protect your children and protect other people from getting exposed to this if it comes to that point. If people are getting sick in the local area, I'm not sending my kid to school. And they're not going to be able to tell me, oh, you have to send your kid to school. It's against the law not to. I'll talk to my lawyer. So, what are you doing today that you were not doing a week ago to prepare for this virus? So my wife and I, we've been getting slowly, every day after I leave work, I'll stop at the store and pick up 2 more boxes of face masks. And these are just the procedural masks. These are the ones that people that are sick would wear, but they're still available, so I still get them. N95 masks are non-existent anymore. So Doc Ferris and I, we visited over a month ago. It was our birthday weekend, and we went out and bought these, and there were only enough to cover our purchases there, and that was over a month ago. So we were fortunate enough to get that, and I bought extra 95 filters that go inside this here. So that is for a person that's not sick. It's got a relief valve. So you're breathing in through the filter, exhaling. So if somebody's sick, you don't want that. So the ear loop procedural face masks are used for those people who are sick. It's got a plastic inside, waterproof inside, that keeps you from expelling, excuse me, that aerosol that will come out and infect other people. And so we are planning. We do have a list of things that we're doing currently, and dotting some I's, crossing off some T's to make sure that we're covered down in case we do have to shelter in place, in case we do have to leave, or plans are already set in place. That's what preparing is all about. Homesteading is in place. That's what homesteading is all about. We got rabbits in the back. They're going to be having babies within the next week. We got chickens in the coop. We've got chicks in the brooder. We have a rotation of constant protein source in case we cannot go out into the public to get protein. As far as vegetables go, we have a pantry filled with last year's stock or cans that have been collected over time to make a stock pantry. And also, we have already started planning for the new season. It is still cool right now, too cool for like tomatoes or any hot weather plants that you need, but cool enough for peas, cool enough for root vegetables, carrots, beets, so on and so forth, and it's cool, or should I say warm enough, for salad greens. And so last weekend we planted all those, and they're all sprouting now. And so by the time we're really struggling, if we're really struggling for food, we would have something in place to replace what we get out in town. And we're stocked up enough on dry goods to react to that shortcoming. So anybody have any questions or anything like that about what's going on? What should you do now? And I follow a couple people. I follow Brad from Full Spectrum Survival. Check his channel out. Most of you have actually come from his channel. We talk on almost a daily basis. And check out his channel. Don't let this frighten you. First thing you should do is never panic. And but you should just be prepared and be informed, right? So let me pull up some stuff here real quick, show you guys what's going on my website. I will add that info below. If you look at any other of my videos, our website, which is breakawayhomesteader.us, shows exactly what's going on in the pandemic side of things. So I have a section on my page right here called Pandemic 2020, and I have not updated this yet. I will be updating this after this video. It gives you the current number of cases, yesterday's cases, the number dead, percentage of death, which has been going up slowly but surely, the amount recovered, which is going up slowly but surely. But these are based upon numbers that are reported, and none of these are probably accurate at all. And scientists say this could be 10 to 25 times the number that we've been told. And new countries are getting infected all the time. Several more countries have been added to today's list. So this list, this large list, which has had to have been split into two, is going to be even bigger, adding the extra countries in there that have been infected today. So on here, there are at least 3 videos that are currently updated on a daily basis. And I will update this one. So this is Dr. Chris Martenson. He's an economic researcher by trade, but he completed both a PhD and postdoctoral program at Duke University. His specialty was in neurotoxicology. So he is a doctor. And he gives a daily brief, almost a daily brief. Sometimes he takes a day off, of exactly what's going on and gives his perspective as a doctor of what's going on. And he is totally flabbergasted on how horrible the CDC and the WHO are doing to protect us from this virus. It's basically non existent. That's the reason why we have to implement these NPIs to uh, mitigate exposure. That's updated on a daily basis. I will look at YouTube if I see something on there that is worthy of you to watch. I'll put that up here. This is an example. CNBC said, yeah, this is from yesterday. A school official in California talks about what it would be like if its children were required to stay out of school, and the markets are still tanking. This is Brad from Full Spectrum Survival. This was his posting yesterday. He posts usually on a daily or by every other day basis. This particular video from yesterday, Brad from Full Spectrum Survival shared that he received an alert last night from a friend in the front lines of the healthcare field who warned that their workplace and hundreds of others that there are not enough masks or other protective gear to handle this incoming disasters. Another thing I've provided down here below is isolation rooms. What this is here is a link to a video that I created last month, at the end of last month. I made a video on how to create a biohazard containment room inside small spaces. This is more for urban areas, for small apartments, whatnot, places you can't have large spaces, small apartments, one-bedroom apartments. If people are being quarantined and people are getting sick, the people who are sick need to be separated from those who are not sick. This is an easy way and a cheap way to separate that person from the healthy people when you're stuck inside a forced quarantine. So check out that video sometime. It's pretty good. And some other things that might come in handy. Bleach tablets. So if you ever have make a disinfectant slurry, which is water and bleach, to wipe surfaces down and kill this virus, you're good to go. A solar shower. In case the water goes out, you can filter water and have a shower. You'll need shower for decontamination. For those stuck in apartments, they will need some way to wash their clothing, and a portable clothes washer is a good idea, right? You have a humidifier down here. There's research stating that a humid environment is a good environment to slow down viruses of some degrees, of some types of viruses, not all types. Some actually accelerate. So let's look into that a little more before you decide to get yourself a big humidifier. Amazon delivery, Amazon pantry. This may be the next wave of how we're going to get our groceries. Suggest you get on Amazon Prime. If you don't have it already, buy the Prime service. Amazon Pantry is on that, and basically you can get everything from the grocery store delivered to your door, and without having to expose yourself to other people. Yes, it's going through the mail. Yes, you might have to wait a few days to make sure whatever's on it will die off. But this may be the wave of the future there. But this is my website, and I hope you guys use it as a tool or a quick snapshot of what's going on. Right here on the left-hand side, you got a couple of links to PDFs. These PDFs are for a sanitation manual telling you how to sanitize yourself out in the field, how you can sanitize your clothes, so on and so forth. They've got different schematics in these books on ways to steam sanitize your clothing out in the field practices, latrine practices. If your power goes out and your water goes out and you have to make a latrine, how to do that properly, where to do that properly, how not to infect your water supply, so on and so forth. These are from the early 1900s, from the time when the last pandemic happened. This one here is from 1917, and this one is an updated version of that same manual from 1945. Let's get back to the... So that's pretty much it, folks. That's section 1 of 4 of this series. Introduction to NPIs and what the CDC will be doing and saying. And so I hope to help you guys, and we will see you guys for the next iteration of this training. It's really what it is, it's training. We need to be prepared for this. And if you haven't prepared already, now's the time to do so. The gong has already been hit, the preparedness gong. Supplies are starting to dwindle, and so don't be stuck without anything. If you have to go into debt to get supplies, to get at least a 3 months worth of dry goods, do it now. Seriously, take my advice on that. Because 3 months from now, when nothing is available, you'll want to say, I wish I had paid attention. I wish I had done that before. I was more worried about money than the health of my family. You don't want to be that person. Don't be that guy. I'm Patrick from the Breakaway Homestead, and we will see you shortly in a few days to do part number 2. We're going to hold off on Thursday Night Lives because there's going to be several iterations of different things that we're going to put out. And as I finish them, I'll be going live and doing those videos as well. So until next time, probably around Monday or Tuesday, I'll see you. Have a good night, folks, and be safe out there.